So Mayor-elect Finizio, you moved to New London in the summer of 2010, and by the end of 2011 you were elected the city's mayor. Even you must recognize that's quite an improbable story.
Well, New London loves newcomers, and we're a very welcoming city. We're a very diverse city, and I think people in New London look to the quality of the person rather than any specific demographic about them to determine, who in our community should take different roles within our community. And I think that my election shows a very strong sign to others that New London is a place that you should be willing to consider moving to, or sending your children to one of our magnet schools, or coming here to open a business, because New London is a place that quite obviously welcomes new people.
Did you recognize right away that being new to the city might actually be an advantage, and that people might be looking for change? And do you now feel compelled to follow up on that and demonstrate you will be an advocate for change as mayor?
I do believe that people in the city were looking for a new perspective and new policy priorities. I think that that's best embodied when someone new comes forward to offer them, because it's more believable that someone with a new approach, an actual new person, will do things differently, which is what people were looking for. But I don't believe that being that new in the community was an asset. I think it's always difficult when you're that new to go out and really introduce yourself and become known enough for people to be comfortable enough with you to actually elect you to a position as significant as this one. So that's why we started very early in the campaign, and why we worked very aggressively, particularly on going door to door and meeting people on a personal level, so that people could actually get to know me. So I wasn't just the new face, I was someone that they'd actually met, spoken with, and knew something about.
What was your partner Todd's reaction when you first told him you were thinking of running for mayor? Was there any adjustment period for him to get used to the idea and get on board?
It was a couple hours. Generally, there was a reluctance on both our parts, really, in that we recognize that this is, if successful as it has been, a real life-altering experience. Your privacy is going to be eradicated. It's a 24-hour-a-day job. It's a huge commitment, not just for you, but for your entire family, for everyone really close to you to experience and to go through. So there was some reluctance on both our parts, but I suggested it to him, and very quickly he saw that it was the right thing to do. We both believed it was the right thing to do for the community, and so we threw ourselves into it. If we both didn't fully believe that, I don't think we would have done it.
Do you think it would help politically that your victory was decisive? There had been some concern with so many candidates that we might get a mayor elected with a very small percentage of the vote, but you won convincingly. Is that an asset going into being mayor?
I think it is helpful, because it erases some of the questions that would inevitably be raised about, do you have political legitimacy to advocate, particularly for strong positions that may or may not be controversial, particularly to be an agent of change. Change never comes easily. There's always institutional resistance to new policies or new procedures. So having a strong electoral result behind you can only be an asset. But in spite of that, as I mentioned in the past during the campaign, I still believe that whoever won the office was still going to win a long-term office with a significant amount of authority, and if they knew how to utilize that authority, they would be able to govern, whether they won by 1 vote or, in our case, 1,000 votes. It was still going to be the same office, but certainly I think it does help that the election was not as divided or as small a plurality a result as people had expected.
You take office less than 1 month after the election. That hasn't given you much time to put an administration into place. Talk about that process.
Well, it is a very difficult process, and it has required a tremendous amount of time and effort, not only on my part, but on the part of all those working with the transition, which includes the 2 volunteer transition staffers that I have, along with members of the outgoing city administration who have been extraordinarily helpful to us. That is why also in this transition we have concentrated only on the positions on the mayoral staff, the direct mayoral staff, the department directors, and the vacancies due to retirements in the offices of city clerk and assistant city clerk. All other employment decisions and boards and commissions we have held to make decisions on a rolling basis once we take office. But certainly the dynamics and the metrics of setting up an entirely new administration, transitioning from council manager to strong mayor, from things as complicated as filling significant policymaking posts to things as minute as where is your office going to be and how do we get a desk in here, are all the things that we've had to juggle in less than 4 weeks. So it's been challenging, but we've been doing fairly well with it, and I expect that we'll complete the transition on time as expected.
Each position obviously has its own skill sets, but are there any overriding criteria that you will have in making your choices to fill the various positions in your administration?
I think if there's one overarching principle that I look towards, it's open-mindedness. I look for people who are willing to innovate and consider different options, think outside of the traditional ways of thinking. And this can be someone who was in a position for a long time and who's been wanting to innovate but perhaps hasn't had the encouragement in the past, or it could be someone coming in new with some new ideas as well. But certainly a willingness to embrace some new ways of thinking is something that I look towards. And I also look towards forthrightness. I look for people who are not yes people. I'm not looking for someone who checks every box on a sheet of issues where they agree with me. I'm looking for someone who also brings their own experience, their own ideas, and is willing to tell me and tell others what they think and when they think we're on the wrong path or when we need to look at something differently. I think that makes for much better government than just a group of 6 to 10 people who all agree on everything.
There is no blueprint since you're the first mayor under this new charter change. Do you think being first, do you see that as an advantage because you can kind of create the position, or do you see it as a disadvantage in that you have nothing to work with as far as a history of how this position will work?
Well, I don't see it as an advantage or disadvantage. I just see it as a challenge. And I think the jury will be out on how we do because there's no real benchmark to judge by. What I do bring to the table, which is unique and I think helpful, is that I've worked in strong mayor forms of government and have some experience with it. So I know a little bit better what the strong mayor form of government should look like and what some of the requirements are to surround this position and effectively support this position in a new administration. But no matter what you do, you're going to face criticism for it. For example, with the department directors, under the charter and under the system and the fact that there's no precedent, I could appoint whoever I want for whatever reason without any justification for how or why the selection was made, and that selection would not be subjected to any review by city personnel or by the city council or by anyone. In spite of that, I've held an application process and put out a website and took applications and have been meeting with people and interviewing people and following a merit-based process for this selection. But there are some people who say, well, your website didn't include enough information. Or, well, you haven't said the name of every person who applied. Or, so no matter which way you do it, there's going to be someone somewhere who says, oh, you didn't do it the right way. But the way that I try to explain it is, well, at a baseline, as you say, there's no precedent, and we could have just done it saying it's these people and that's that. So we've at least made, I think, a very good faith effort to hold far more of a merit-based process and a transparent process than certainly we were required to, and that a lot of other mayors in these types of positions have done. So we're doing our best with what we have, and we hope that the process will make the city proud in the end.
Why did you move so quickly to name a chief administrative officer, and talk a little bit about your selection?
Yeah. I did select Jane Glover. I think she's an excellent person for the position because I think she brings to the task skills that I need, at least especially in the first 2 years in a chief of staff, which is depth of knowledge in the city bureaucracy and in the city's political landscape. One of the things I bring to the job, which is a tremendous asset, as we began the conversation about, is the fact that I am new. If there's any disadvantage to that, it's perhaps not knowing all the history of what came before me. So having someone who has navigated these waters, who's a bit of an experienced hand in the city, is, I think, a great benefit to a new mayor who is also a newcomer to the city's political scene. I've known Jane Glover for some time. I've observed her career for years since I've been active and involved in New London, not just in government, but her work in the community. And I thought that she had all the right skill sets and talents and perspectives that I was looking for in the job, and was considering her even during the election, as I mentioned at her announcement. So right after the election result was known, I approached her. She very quickly expressed that she was favorable to it and wanted to do it, but she was taking a 2-week vacation and wouldn't be back until right before the swearing in, and we didn't want the question lingering because this is one of the most significant appointments to be made. It was already a question being raised shortly after the election. Certain other candidates had even announced their picks before the election, who they were going to select if elected. So we wanted to make sure that we named that appointment and settled the rumor mill early on that, and also got Jane in place to help, as she has been helping, with the rest of the transition in a consultative capacity. We ruined her vacation. We've had her on the cell phone plenty of times, and now that she's back, we're going to put her to work as quick as we can.
Are you concerned that the expectations have been set very high for the ability of this new strong mayor position to help New London achieve its potential?
I think that would be a concern for any new administration. Certainly when you look at elections like the one we just went through, where you're entering into a new era in a city, or when you face a significant change in policy. You can even think of the transition from, say, on the national level, George W. Bush to Obama. You know, a lot of people come out and say, we're going to vote because we want to change these policies, and then if the policies all don't change or all the problems aren't solved in 2 days, they become your problems, and eventually people start to say you created them. So I think that's inevitable, but we're glad that we have the well of support that we have at this time, because that provides us a lot of the momentum to really get a lot of things done, I think. But inevitably, I expect that in 6 months, if every single issue in the city hasn't completely done a 180, it'll be my fault somehow. But that goes with the job, and you just expect that and roll with it and do the best you can.
What do you see as New London's best assets?
Hands down, it's people. The people in New London, the community in New London is amazing. That's why I moved here. I didn't move to New London because we have a nice beach. I moved from a town that had a great beach. I didn't move here because of the old buildings. There are beautiful buildings in New London, but there are beautiful buildings in a lot of cities. I moved to New London because the people here were really unique. The diversity here is an integrated diversity that I've never seen in any city that I've lived in or gone to school in or traveled to. More interracial couples than any other place I'd ever visited. More integration between the gay community and the straight community than any other place I'd ever visited. Just a wonderful people that give of themselves constantly. And you can go to any of our civic events or any of our nonprofits or our food kitchens or our homeless shelters or anywhere you go, our women's shelter, and there are just so many people in New London who volunteer so much of their time to help their neighbors, even in a snowstorm. Everyone's out there shoveling each other out and helping each other. I mean, just amazing, amazing, amazing community that we have here. So that's our real asset, is our people. Our government, I think, in the past has been disconnected somewhat from the people in New London, or just the structure of government that we had, council manager, didn't really afford for the people to elect their own leadership and follow some kind of a long-term agenda. But hopefully under this new form of government, we can get that leadership. We now have an agenda set from the top, and if that leadership can mobilize the people behind it, then we can really get amazing things done, because the people are ready and willing and able to go. They just need to be told, okay, where are we going?
How serious do you think the public safety problem is in the city? Is it more of a problem of perception or more a reality problem?
I believe that we do have significant challenges to face, and I mentioned that throughout the course of the campaign, which is one of the main reasons why I've supported the leadership of the current police chief. is that I believe that she has initiated many of the policies that we need to appropriately deal with the issues of urban crime, which is enhanced community policing, integrated community policing, beat patrols, bike patrols, enhanced use of surveillance and lighting, modern technologies such as CompStat to better allocate patrol strength, and also increasing our current patrol strength, which she proposed. The last council did not do, but I hope to do, in our first budget. So doing all of these things will certainly enhance our public safety apparatus. But we are a city, and as a city and as a major transportation hub, we are going to deal with issues that perhaps a more rural community or suburban community might not face. That's a simple reality of urban life. But I believe that we can do a lot to enhance our safety, particularly in our main commercial areas, and to appropriately identify and apprehend those who do commit crimes in our city moving forward. So I think it is a legitimate issue, and we do have a lot to do on it. But I also think there is a certain reality that we will face certain incidents in New London that we might not see in smaller communities in the region. And I think that's just a reality of being a city. So some of it is perception, but there is a legitimate concern here, and we do need to do more to address it.
As you prepare to take office, what is the one thing you would want citizens to know about how you plan to conduct yourself as mayor?
Well, I think that what people in New London can come to expect is that I'm going to be very open and transparent, as I am right now. I'm very happy to do most of my work in the full light of day, to be on the record very often, to be always accessible not only to the media but also to the public, and plan to hold regular office hours, to be visible frequently in the community, so that people know that whether they agree or disagree with what I'm doing, they'll clearly see what it is that I'm doing and have a full explanation from me as to why I'm doing it, which I think will be welcome, because I think that most people don't expect they'll agree with you on everything. But if they at least know where you stand and that you're open and upfront about it, they'll at least respect that.